Hi everyone, welcome back to JDCodebase. In today's video, we will learn about scope and hosting in JavaScript. This is a beginner-friendly guide where we will cover how, where, let, and const behave in terms of scope and how hosting works in JavaScript. Now, before we start coding, let's understand why scope and hosting are important. Scope defines where a variable can be accessed in your program. If you don't understand scope properly, you may run into bugs where variables behave unexpectedly. Also, hosting explains why sometimes you can access a variable even before declaring it. So learning this will help you write cleaner, predictable, and bug-free code, especially when debugging function and block structure. What is scope? Scope is basically the area in our code where a variable is accessible. In JavaScript there are mainly two types: global scope, variable accessible everywhere, and local scope, variable accessible only inside the function or block. Now, how do where, let, and const behave? Where is a function scope? It does not care about block scope. And let is a block scope, which means it respects the curly braces. Const is also a block scope, and in addition you cannot reassign it. That's why modern JavaScript developers prefer let and const over where. Let's see this in action with a small example. Here the code is: if true, where a is equal to 10, let b is equal to 20, const c is equal to 30. And now we are consoling value console.log a, console.log b, console.log c. If I run this, I get ref reference error, but the value of a is print here. As you can see, a declare with where is still accessible outside the block, but b and c declare with let and const are block scope. So trying to action them outside give a reference error, as we see here. That's why block scoping with let and const is safer. Now, what is hosting? Hosting means JavaScript moves variable and function declaration to the top of their scope before executing the code. But remember, only the declaration is hosted, not the initialization. Let's check how where behave with hosting. So let me comment this first. So here the code is console.log x, and in next line number 14, I initialize the where x is equal to 5. As you can see, JavaScript does not throw an error. If I run this code, you will see there is no error here. Instead, it prints undefined. That's because the declaration where x is hosted to the top, but the value 5 is not. In backend of JavaScript, it seems like let x console.log x, and sorry, I have to write where here, where x console.log x, and where x is equal to 5. If I run this, I get undefined here. So it's look like this is same, both are similar here. Now let and const hosting here. Try the same examples for this. If you see console.log y, let y is equal to 10, console.log z, const z is equal to 20. If I run this, I get a reference error. Reference error cannot access y before initialization. This time JavaScript throws this error, reference error. That's because let and const are also hosted, but they remain in something called the temporal dead zone until the code actually reaches their declaration line, so you cannot access them before they are defined. Now let's summarize this. Scope controls where variables can be accessed. Where is a function scope and hosted as undefined. But let and const are block scope and hosted, but they are stay in the temporal dead zone TDZ until declare. That's why we mostly use let and const for writing safer and more predictable JavaScript code. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to JDCodebase for more quick and practical JavaScript tutorials.